Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the NEF podcast. Today, we will be talking about nutrition and food health with Dr. Amy Smalaras, with Leighton Ness and Hannah Rose, who are both UMass Lowell Division 1 college athletes. They're both lacrosse players at UMass Lowell. And I'm super excited to be talking to them all about kind of nutrition, food, and everything else that means for the female athlete. So stay tuned. Cool. All right. So hi, Amy, Leighton, and Hannah. Thank you so much for joining me on our 4th NEF podcast. So we're going to be discussing all about nutrition and really like food health kind of in general for female athletes. I guess before we start, do you want to just give us a brief introduction? Amy, do you want to kind of go first and then we can go from there?
Yeah, sure. Hi, thanks for having me today. I'm Amy Smalaras, so I'm a professor at UMass Lowell. I teach in the Department of Public Health, and I'm also a pre-health advisor at the university, so I work with students who are thinking of, say, medical school or being a physician's assistant. And I'm happy to talk today about nutrition in female athletes, sharing some personal stories of growing up as a young woman, because I'm obviously older now, but having that, and then some other, things that come from science and my nutrition colleagues at school too. So I'm looking forward to sharing that today.
Great, thank you. Leighton, do you want to just give us a brief introduction?
Sure. So I'm Leighton, and I am a sophomore in college. I go to UMass Lowell. I'm on the women's lacrosse team there, and I'm a public health and biology major. So I have the pleasure of having Amy as my professor. So I also have like a sciencey background in some of this stuff, but just like a firsthand experience of what it means to be a female athlete as well.
Love that. And Hannah?
Hi, I'm Hannah Rose. I am a senior captain on the UMass Lowell women's lacrosse team. I am not a science major. I am a finance with a minor in legal studies. And I'm just excited to, share some of my stories and give my input on this topic.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to have such a great discussion and loads of kind of experience and backgrounds kind of talking about this. I think for me, just to kind of get the ball rolling, it would be great to just have kind of like an open discussion just on nutrition, kind of what it is, and kind of being able to, as athletes, the importance of fueling our bodies kind of efficiently. I don't know who wants to kind of go with that one first.
I mean, I'm happy to start off and then hand over to the students, because I know you all work with nutrition folks, as athletes, because I know at UML we have a lot of student support for athletes that you all get. I mean, I can just say off the start, maybe some of the obvious things of, having to, there's always the balance of having nutrition, have enough fuel for your body, especially for young women, because you're developing in a lot of different ways, and so there's that mix of making sure you have enough fuel for your body to grow, and then also being able to perform on the field, and that's where the challenge is with nutrition of understanding the better food choices to make, as well as the right amounts or better amount of those food choices, and making sure we have that continual flow of energy into the body, really again developing mentally, physically, emotionally, and again for the soccer folks, performance on the pitch too, you need all of that together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Leighton and Hannah, I don't know if you want to touch base on kind of the nutrition talks that I guess you probably receive as athletes. What kind of things do they typically talk about?
So we have a nutritionist who works with us, and we usually have like a whole team meeting, and then she is available for us to set up like individual meetings if you want a more personalized like food plan. And she works with the university as well, so she has like firsthand knowledge of people who maybe aren't living off campus and who are going to the dining hall, so she knows like what's available to students as well. But they talk to us a lot about making sure that we're putting the right foods in our body that are going to either like digest quick enough or give us that long-term energy that we need. So for instance, like during non-COVID times, we're usually like up in the morning lifting. So a big question is like, a lot of people don't like to eat like a big breakfast, obviously, early in the morning. They're not hungry. Or people running from class to practice, what's a good snack or something that you can eat that won't make you feel like, you know, it's just sitting in your stomach while you're playing. So she's really helpful. Like I know it's definitely an adjustment, you know, coming from high school with like your daily like schedule of eating, and it definitely changes a little bit in college. So she helped us with that a lot.
What are some of the changes that you've kind of faced? I mean, great, you kind of said about that transition between kind of high school and then college. Like, what are some of these differences that you have to think about when it comes to like your food health, really?
You can go ahead, Clayton.
So, okay, I was just gonna say that like for me, I, like Hannah was kind of talking about, I like found it difficult a little first transitioning into college of like learning when to eat before and like what to eat before practice, because like for me, I can't eat something like super big or super heavy before I go and like lift or run or anything like that, because I'll feel like nauseous. So I had to definitely find the balance between finding something that's healthy but like also can give me energy for more than 3 hours. And also you're just like practicing so much more than you do in high school. Like we practice 6 days a week for like 3 hours plus 3 days a week of lifting. So like you need to be able to like fuel your body for a long continuated period of time. So that was definitely like the biggest transition for me.
Was it difficult to kind of find that balance? What did you kind of do? Right, food that worked for you? What were kind of the challenges with that?
So I had a challenge because I'm like freshman year did not love the dining hall food. So I would eat like a lot of cereal. And I found that when like I ate cereal, it would like sit in my stomach because it's full of fiber and you shouldn't eat that before you work out.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to find the transition of like a food that worked for me. So I usually would have like a piece of toast with like some eggs, and that would usually be able to like keep me full for a long period of time, but also digest quick enough that within like an hour I could be ready to like run on the field right away. So I think it's like a very personal thing of like finding the kind of food that fuels you, but also like digests quick enough for you to be able to work out.
Was it more of a trial and error, just kind of figuring it out as you went along?
Yeah, for sure.
And so, I mean, what did you do instead of, because obviously you said you weren't a fan of like the food hall, and I can imagine that's probably something that a lot of freshmen maybe have a challenge with. It's completely different to, I guess, what you would normally have at home. What was your go-to instead? Like go-to foods? You know, how did you kind of fuel your body instead?
I was a big oatmeal eater too. I found that oatmeal was a really good food that I would eat and be able to like feel full. I ate a lot of eggs, cereal, like I said, but I found that cereal like didn't always sit correctly in my stomach.
Yeah.
So it was a balance. I mean, I ate like a lot of salads too from the dining hall, but I think it's like dependent on where you go to school. Like it's whatever food is like healthy or like you deem healthy and like is able to fuel you. So like oatmeal is a really big one, yogurt, like salads with grilled chicken, rice, eggs. Those were like my big foods that I ate. Because the dining hall also like doesn't always have the healthiest options. So like you need to be able to like scope out the healthy options within the whole building.
And see what kind of worked for you and what you liked, I guess.
Yeah.
So what were some of your, I guess, kind of open up to everyone, what are some of your like food experiences, maybe like growing up to now kind of where you are in terms of your understanding of nutrition and food health? Like I know for me, kind of growing up, I was very much just kind of relying on what my mom put on the table. So I kind of just, as well as an athlete, I kind of just ate what I was given, and it wasn't until I was old enough to kind of feed myself, I guess, to a certain extent, that I started to be a bit more selective on what I ate. What were kind of your experiences? Were they similar to that, or did you have a bit more ownership on what you were eating?
You guys want to go first? I can go too.
I can go, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, why don't you all go first?
Yeah, go for it, Lay.
I would say I had a similar experience. Like, I was pretty dependent on whatever my mom put out on the table, I would usually eat. But luckily, my mom is very big on nutrition and she is a very healthy eater. So I've kind of taken that with me throughout growing up. Like, I literally didn't eat an Oreo until I was in high school. Like, my mom never bought anything. Like, I never had sugary snacks with my lunch. Like, people would always be trading in elementary school and I'd be like, does anyone want my carrot sticks? Like, no. So, like, I am lucky in that my parents are big on nutrition. So I have gotten, like, a background of it since I was little. So I also have, like, I would say a more expanded palate. And, like, I've been eating quinoa for a really long time. Like, I always have loved salads, and, like, I eat basically every single fruit and vegetable that is offered, like foods like that. So I've definitely taken that with me to college and throughout my high school career as well.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I'd say,
My mom's very healthy.
piggybacking off of Leighton, I'd say my sister and I grew up like swimming. So my mom and dad have always been into like the idea of like fueling your bodies, and especially because like for swimming, and I know Leighton swam too, it's like even more emphasized because of how far you're pushing your body in a very like short period of time. So I feel like it's always been like a pretty like well-known thing around my house, like eating healthy, having those healthy options, and making sure that like it's a balanced meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am completely the opposite of both of them. So when I grew up in my house, so my mom, I was born in Kentucky, right? So they're Southern. So we moved up to Massachusetts where I live now when I was in almost middle school. But so it was very Southern diet. If y'all don't know, now I'm bringing y'all out from South. If you don't know what that is, there's a lot of, the biscuits and the gravy and the heavier foods. My mom was not an athlete, neither was my dad. So I don't know how I did like when I was younger, I did the 4 sports, every different season. So I came to understanding nutrition very differently, like looking outside of my home and looking at friends. And then I know we're going to talk about this later, but some of the eating disorders, I went completely the opposite way of, well, this food isn't good for me, so I'm really not going to eat this food. I'm really going to restrict what I have and kind of play with that, which was not a good option to do. But it was my way of trying to, figure out how to eat differently than what I'd been taught. So it was, I had a very different experience growing up for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I think this is something that will probably echo and relate a lot to all of our players here. With Leighton and Hannah, you've obviously played sport growing up, and there's a huge kind of sport culture around here. And I think that nutrition is starting to become recognized, especially for athletes, in the importance of it. But I think for me, it's important to ensure that our athletes are educated and they know what kind of food they should be eating. But also, I think a big part of it is just making sure that they're not necessarily shamed for having maybe diets that they're not fully in control of, especially if parents are, for me, parents are in control of what they're putting on the plate. So I think that's kind of a key thing for them to kind of think about. And I guess I want to know from you guys, what are maybe some of your tips that you might give some of our female athletes, in terms of just trying to have some control, I guess, on their nutrition and keeping it healthy and appropriate to them? I don't know whoever wants to jump in.
I can start if you want. I guess like how I really think of it, and like my mom kind of was a big advocate for this, is like you need to fuel your body, but you also need to like refuel your body, right? So, like you need to fuel your body when you're working out, when you're doing, like, obviously you burn calories doing like everything during the day, right? So when you're working out, you're burning even more calories, and it's important to fuel, but also to refuel after you work out so that you're building that muscle that either you're trying to build or you're just keeping yourself like healthy and like getting all the nutrients that you need.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and like kind of going off what Hannah was saying about refueling your body, like I know from personal experience that I have definitely felt like almost guilty after I work out when I like sometimes after I work out I'm like starving and I like want to eat, but then like I'm like, oh, I shouldn't do that because I just burned all these calories. So it took me a while to like understand that like your body is telling you that you need to fuel your body. And like eating foods that are high in protein after you work out is like super good because your muscles need those amino acids in the protein to rebuild and replenish themselves. So like it is super important to like listen to your body, like Hannah was saying. Like if you're hungry after you work out, like you need to refuel your body because otherwise like it can cause problems in the future because like it's not getting the proper replenishments that it needs. Like, I've definitely been for being like, oh, I feel so guilty for like eating right after I just burned all these calories, when in actuality like it's a good thing and my body is telling me like, you burned these calories, I need these calories back.
I think that's such a really important like point to make. I feel like we're constantly going maybe based on social media or based on other things to do with body image that we maybe don't necessarily think about what our actual body needs. And I think that's such a huge point, Nathan. I mean, I felt it before. I'm like, I've just burnt off all of these calories. Like, you know, I don't want to be putting them all back on, but it's just that education and knowing what we need to do about that. And I don't know, Amy, if you want to kind of tag in with maybe some of the, I guess, scientific side of things for that.
Well, I mean, they kind of touched on that, right? Of I think there's a part, you know, piggybacking and reinforcing what Leighton was talking about of really taking time to listen to your body and not second guessing. It's giving your, it's basically, and this is like the cheesy part maybe, but it is sciencey based too, like the love and respect for your body to be able to, you know, kind of honor that hunger, but feed it those good proteins, because we do know the muscles get worn down, but that's how, you know, when your muscles are getting stronger and, you know, bigger, they're essentially tearing and they're building themselves back up. So you need to give them really that glue, if you will, to kind of build up, but the healthy glue. Again, my technical terms that just but it is kind of, those proteins do really help to rebuild. And it's also one of those things when I have two kids, but, you know, boys that are 11 and 13, but when we go through what's in our house, we look at labels and they look at the foods and say, okay, can I pronounce what's here? Because if you can pronounce it, then I say like your body knows what to do with it, basically. Junk there. So that's kind of another thing too, when you are after those workouts, you know, if you're hungry, go grab, you know, whether the healthier peanut butters or, you know, cheese, things, whatever your body is looking for and kind of craving, because there's a reason your body's asking for that particular type of food. Now, if you're craving Oreos or gummy worms, maybe that's not it. But those other types of healthier foods, like maybe it's peanut butter, maybe it's a yogurt, maybe it's, you know, something along those lines, then, you know, I think that's a good decision to make.
Yeah.
Liam, were you going to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that for me, and I know Hannah is the same way as me, like something that I love to eat after I work out and like don't feel guilty about is peanut butter. Like me and Hannah are big peanut butter girls. Like we eat it by the spoonful, and that's something that always like makes me feel full, but I also don't feel like super guilty after eating that because it's so good for your body.
And I'll even use that sometimes now for longer runs, maybe 20, 30 minutes before, you know, I'm going for that longer run. I'll have that spoonful of peanut butter because then it releases the energy. And sometimes I have one when I get home too, right? But it's easy to do. And it's, you know, those healthier peanut butters, which, you know, there's, you know, 4 ingredients, you know, and it still tastes really good. But that is a good source.
And I feel like part of this, maybe this guilt of kind of eating, I think comes a lot with, I guess, female athletes in general, or females in general, and the whole thing about body image. I don't know if you guys can maybe touch on that kind of as athletes, if you've ever, or even you, Amy, if you've ever experienced that kind of feeling. I know for me, there's always, as an athlete, there's always this kind of scrutiny that I think we feel like we're under, and that we need to be this perfect body shape, you know, we need to be super slim and athletic, and actually it's kind of an image that isn't really appropriate or right anymore. And I guess for me, you know, and for all of our athletes, it's recognizing that we all have certain body shapes and sizes, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a right or wrong size. And I wonder if you guys had any kind of experiences of feeling that way, and touch on that.
I mean, I know I definitely have had times where I'm like I have like kind of a funny story that I'll share. So like when I got to UMass Lowell my freshman year, like lifting in college is much different than like what a lot of people do in high school. So you just gain like a ton of muscle the fall because all you're doing is practicing and lifting. Obviously you're going to school and stuff, but I've always had pretty strong muscly like legs and calves. And I remember I like popped the zipper. I came home for like Thanksgiving and I popped the zipper on these like tall riding boots that went up to like my knees. And I just kind of was like, oh my gosh, like at first I was like really upset, and I was like, well, like nothing fits me. And I'm like, my mom was like, well, yeah, because you've gained so much muscle. Like, it's not a bad thing, Hannah. Like, you can always get a new pair of boots. It's not a big deal. So like, I've definitely just had small moments over the years, which I'm sure like a lot of student athletes have had, especially females, where it's like, there's a certain body shape and type that you see on social media, but like what our bodies can do is like, I think what we're able to do on a day-to-day basis is like amazing, but that's because we're muscly, because we're healthy, like because we're fueling our bodies, that's a tough thing to tell yourself though, when you're like seeing other things online, I think.
Yeah, definitely agree with everything that Hannah said. And I know that I've had moments where like I'm like an athletic build, like I have big shoulders, I have big legs, but like I'm strong. And like I've definitely had moments where I've like looked at myself and been like, oh my God, like I don't look like anyone else. Like I'm so big, but like in actuality, like it's just pure muscle. Like you need to be muscular and athletic to be able to run up and down the field and be able to like run the ball up and like defend people. And like I just think that like it took me a while to like come to terms with like it's okay to be muscular. Like that's good because it gives you an advantage on the field. And like Hannah was saying, like I've definitely had moments where I'm like struggled with like the whole idea of being just like built naturally bigger than everyone else, because like I'm athletic, like I've played sports my whole life, like, but I think it's just something that you have to come to terms with, and that comes with like learning how to love your body, and like Amy was saying, like respecting and loving your body, and like seeing all the amazing things that it can do on a day-to-day basis that the average person wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, I love that. Was there ever a point where there was like a turning point for you to realize, because I love like all the terminology that you're using in terms of like muscle and strength and that kind of stuff, whereas maybe some of the younger athletes might not necessarily see it as that. Was there ever like a turning point in your lives where you thought that was beneficial and it was kind of the right terminology to use to kind of empower yourselves?
Yeah, I think that mine came last year in college when my coach was basically like said in front of the whole team, was like, when Leighton is in the middle of the 8, she's the only person who can get the ball because she's the only person who has the power to be able to turn and shoot. And she only said it about like 3 people on a team of like 30 girls. So I think that was when I like finally realized like I'm strong enough, and like being strong gives me an advantage over everyone else because I have the power and the muscle to be able to like do things that other people can't. And I also think that it came with like, so like you get your picture taken all the time when we're like have games and stuff, and like looking at pictures after games and like going through all the pictures and like seeing everyone, and like you can see all the muscle definition that they have, and like it's just like something that I was like, it's cool. Like it like finally made me realize that like it's okay to be muscular, like it's good. It's a good thing. I don't know if that made sense, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say like, and I'm in my mind, the story that comes to mind is from back in kind of high school times, which is really, I mean, long time ago, far away when those stories. But I do remember because I played sports most of my life, but I went through a stage in middle school with bullying happening out in the playground and recess, and I found my solace in sour cream and onion potato chips and other things, which was not helpful. So, and I wasn't growing, as I was growing one way, not the other, basically from not exercising as much. And then I hit high school and, kind of fresh start, like different school, and got back into sports because it was just, I was comfortable to do that again. And then fast forward, like freshman to junior year, I grew over 5 inches and lost about 50 pounds across that. So all of a sudden, it was like, oh, there's a lot of change that definitely happened, throughout that time. So that's the other thing too, I think, of recognizing, body shapes and sizes. Your body is going to change, and it's supposed to, but it also feels, it can feel sometimes really great and other times really awkward and like, ugh, I have to deal with this. Like, I don't want to change right now. I liked this before, or, wow, this is great. I'm changing, so there's all these ups and downs. And I think, the body's changing, hormones are changing, and all these things are happening. And it can be really hard. And I think, and Hannah hit on this about having that, what are other people thinking of how I look, and sort of mirroring, what we think is how we should look, or look at others, and comparing ourselves. And I think that's a thing that we do a lot. I think the one thing I'm really excited about now is so many of the female athletes we have that are people, to emulate and to look at, are just all different shapes and sizes now. And they're strong, and they're not apologetic for it either, right? So that part I find really cool too. Of I'm either skinny and tall, or shorter and muscular, whatever it is, but I'm not apologizing because I'm good at what I do, and I'm here to compete and things like that. And I think some of that terminology has been changing too.
Yeah, it's really cool to see athletes just kind of owning their bodies and just being like, yeah, this is what I look like and what it allows me to do, all of these different things. And I think there was something I actually saw on social media not that long ago about a girl who couldn't fit into jeans, really young, couldn't fit into a pair of jeans. And she had said, well, my thighs are just too strong. That's the reason why I can't fit into it. And I just thought, wow, that's great that we're able to start to reframe body image and see that instead of, when I was younger, that would have been such a negative thing. So now having like younger players, younger athletes, younger people, just recognizing that that's actually a good thing and reframing it to be kind of positive. Because I guess having that negative side of body image can lead to a lot of eating disorders along the way. And I don't know if I guess it might be something that would be really great to kind of touch on how that happens, what that means, and kind of talking about, the impact of sort of eating disorders that can come about. So I don't know if you want to kind of start on that, Amy, and then we can kind of tag in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, some of the numbers behind it, about 13% or so of young women now have some type of eating disorder, whether it be a bulimia, right? So that's binge eating and then ridding yourself of the food that you've eaten, and the other more common one too is the anorexia, right? Where and it can be a combination of both of these, of either really restricting the calories that you eat and counting everything, and or excessive exercising, right? So and then some people have just the calorie restriction, some have excessive exercise, and then there's about another third that do both, where they restrict their calories and have that excessive exercise. And the challenges, especially, and this is women age 15 to 20, right? So this is, about 13 to 15% of women, 15 to 20 have these have these challenges. And I have a feeling it may be more than that. Those are only the ones that actually respond that they do have that, right? Because we're dependent on surveys or asking people, especially for young women. I talked about we're developing. We need the fuel, and if we starve our bodies, which is essentially what it is, whether it's bulimia or anorexia, that you actually hurt your bone structure, right? So you may not have more broken bones as a young athlete, but by the time you're 30, your bones are weaker and it's what's called more brittle. So you're more likely to get broken bones because you haven't given your body that strength. You also, another thing too, your iron levels can get really low. And, for young women developing, if you don't have your menstrual cycle every month, there's the fancy word amenorrhea, but really what that is, it's deficiency for the body, which actually impacts your other body organs, your heart, your lung, your kidneys, liver. And it's one of those kind of silent sort of things where you don't necessarily, see something right away, but it builds up over years. And then you see some challenges. And so that's really something we are up against, especially with female athletes. That's another reason it's really important. Yes, we all exercise because it feels good, right? To do that. And that's what we enjoy doing. But we also, at the same sense, again, need to have that nutrition to make sure we don't get deficient in the vitamins and minerals and bones and muscles and all those things.
And what are sort of some of the reasons behind maybe having an eating disorder, and when that might, why that might start?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's, I think there's just a lot of, it's not one size fits all. There's different things, but I think a lot of it, at least the scientific literature, and I will say personally, I had anorexia when I was in high school and early college as well. And so, and I kind of experienced all of this. So I'm like, the science is right because I lived through this. But there's a level of, those who feel bullied. That's one way, because if that's out of your control, having that eating disorder is something you have control over, which sounds, for those who don't have it, it sounds weird, but for those who, it may sound familiar, it's just, I don't have control over what they do or how they make me feel, but I can either numb by eating certain foods to kind of forget it, or just really control this. And I'm so exhausted that I don't even have any emotional energy to give to worrying about the bullying.
Right.
As an example, another thing, and this I will say, when I learned about this a couple years ago, I thought my students were making this up, but they're not. On different social media platforms, you can alter and use filters to make your body look better, your face look better. You almost give yourself like pseudoplastic surgery to kind of give like all these different things. And that's there and people are using it. And it's, for me, it kind of makes my heart sad because you're distorting your body for what you think someone else thinks is beautiful. But also if you see that and even kind of unconsciously do that, it's giving yourself a message that, well, I need to look like that, or how I look isn't good enough and I need to fix it. And so if you feel that way, that can also be a trigger to bulimia or anorexia, to try to, change some of that and try to control some of that.
I think as well, sort of from an athlete perspective, sometimes I feel like we have pressures maybe to be a certain shape based on potentially like what a coach might say or think. And I don't know if any athletes have maybe experienced this, but there are times maybe when a coach might make maybe an inappropriate comment about your shape or your size. And I guess, I don't know if anyone has kind of experienced that before, just that I guess can potentially then cause us to want to be able to control, restrict food and diet. And I think it's crazy to think that, we might have external sources that are kind of dictating what you know, the pressures of what size we should be at in our sport as well, and beyond sport.
Yeah, I will say I didn't have a coach, but did you all have anybody?
I've never experienced that, luckily. I mean, I've heard stories of people who like have experienced that, but I haven't firsthand. I don't know, Hannah.
No, I haven't experienced it. What our coach, and Leighton can say this, is, so you can't really see, but Leighton is like at least a head taller than me. I'm like very short. But our coach is all about like having us like be strong enough so that like we can't get pushed over. That's like her whole thing, is like, you're strong so like you won't get pushed over. But I mean, that's not a negative thing. That just like kind of makes me like, yeah, like I'm strong, like I can take anybody that's like 6 feet taller than me, like that's fine, bring it. But no, I agree though. I think that there are some girls who experience that, and I think it also could depend on the sport that you're in and everything, but I fortunately have not experienced that.
Yeah, and I would say luckily, and Hannah can attest to us, that our coach is like very like big on like us being strong, not being like lean or skinny. Like she wants us strong.
Yeah.
I think is good for like a lot of athletes, because athletes just tend to be naturally stronger than the average person. So it's definitely like a positive that I have felt, at least.
Yeah.
And you can be strong without being a specific body shape as well, which I think is really important, is you can be strong at whatever size you are. And I love that there is that huge emphasis on strength kind of above anything else.
Yeah, I will say, and this is just my own experiences here, where I have friends and some of their girls are actually on the soccer team here at the town high school, you know, that I will go and, you know, cheer them on in the games, and it's fun because it's just, I don't know, just fun to watch them out on the pitch. But it's interesting because there are a handful of, well, I say a couple of parents that are known to make comments about body sizes of some of the other players who aren't their own children.
Yeah.
And I was biting my tongue because Leighton knows this. I can sometimes have a big mouth or get excited over some things. I don't have a child here, so I need to kind of shush a little bit. But you know, I kind of asked a couple questions, and then my friend sort of spoke up around, you know, basically telling the person to, you know, keep those attitudes to themselves, because you know, they're a little more toxic and things we don't really want to hear about, comparing, you know, like, oh wow, I can't believe she did that, she's so big, you know, that comment. And I did have one of those, oh come on, like which I'm glad my voice weren't there when I said that, because I did not use my inside voice on that one. I think, and that was just last year, you know, pre-COVID, when we actually, you know, could have sports and go watch them with friends and family. But I think there still are some of those, and it may not be coaches. And this is, again, just the high school where I'm at, but I think there are still some, it can be thoughts and attitudes of parents. And if you're hanging with a friend and you're at their house, or you know, you're in that environment or hear those things, you know, you hear them and you don't always forget them necessarily. So even if you have that stronger willpower to say, yeah, but I'm not worried about that, there sometimes put that voice of, well, am I too big to do this, or not enough that, because they said that. So, you know, and they're not an expert, but you hear it. So that can sometimes throw you off.
And what kind of tips would you maybe give to athletes who might be in that kind of environment? You know, how can they still be very much focused on themselves, and to try and ignore some of the negativity that they might face? Yeah,
that's especially when I go, you know, that, you know, high school age is just so hard for so many, on so many levels. You know, there's so much going on, you know, just being able to walk through the hallways between classes, much less, you know, doing that. But I think one of the things, and I share this with my kids, and I do some workshops here at the high school with the kids here, and I just have them do the old-fashioned, a little bit of whether it's journaling or having you know, some type of, you know, this is something I'm really grateful for today, kind of reminding them of that. And at the same time, also journaling if there's something that you hear, to write about it and why it triggered something in you, and what, you know, kind of, I guess, in a way of giving it space to say, okay, this really bothered me. But then also give it space to say, well, I heard what that person said, but I don't really know if I value it or really want to take it in because of this. So that can just go here and I'm going to let that go. And, oh, by the way, this is something great I did on the field today or on the court today, whatever it is. So you're not pushing the emotion down in a way, because that can be really bad for you to not deal with it up front. Because if you hide those feelings, they will pop up sometime.
Yeah.
A funny, pesky way of doing that. But if you give it some space to say, wow, that made me feel sad or angry or confused. But then in the next couple sentences, yeah, but I did this, this, and this, and that was really great. It's a way of kind of dealing with it. I mean, there's no perfect. And I would say too, talking to, friends you trust, that, you can, they hold you and you hold them, and, there's that level of trust, and family, parents, they want to help and hear what's going on. And as a parent, I hardly ever have the perfect answer. And half the time, it's the right answer. But it is helpful just to hear, if you, talk to a parent, because believe it or not, they're human and, want to help. And I think that's something too, again, knowing they may not have the right answer, or say the perfect thing, but at least opening that dialogue is letting them know kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like just talking, about it helps. Writing things down helps because it allows you to just acknowledge it and know that it is real, but then kind of gives you opportunities to address it and then move on from it, which I think are really, really important. And will just help, like I said, you don't want to be building and having all of that kind of build up inside you and then it kind of release, and who knows how that's going to pan out from there. I guess the final thing from me, well, a couple of things. Do you guys have any just overall kind of tips on healthy, food health, things that you might do yourselves, just being able to help us kind of stay healthy, and making the right food choices, and how that might, especially as athletes, fueling your body the right way. Do you have any kind of tips that we can kind of give our players for that kind of thing?
Do you guys want to?
Whoever wants to jump in.
I mean, I don't know if it's a tip, but I really like to have like a good hearty breakfast every morning. Like Leighton can tell you because we live together, but like when people say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, it's true. And it's also my favorite meal. So it goes hand in hand for me. But I think that like starting the day off, like fueling yourself, like having a cup of coffee or tea, whatever you like, it just is a better way to like give you the energy to like start your morning and start your day. Right. That's just my biggest thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I'm a big breakfast eater too, but I also think that I feel good after like a day of working out when I eat like a healthy dinner. So like balancing like a protein, a grain, and like a vegetable with dinner is like super important. So and Hannah is the same way. Like we're both big on like making sure that we have balanced, healthy meals, and we're both like very healthy eaters. So I think it's important to like honestly like even just like doing a little research on like what you think is healthy, because it is important to like balance your food intake, because your body does need some foods more than others, especially as an athlete. Like you need more protein and more carbohydrates than like the average person needs. So I would just make sure like that you're not overeating vegetables and like under eating carbohydrates, like things like that, making sure that you have a balanced meal throughout the day.
Yeah, because I feel like we automatically think that eating a ton of like fruit and veg is like the way to go. But kind of, I think what you said, Leighton, like is spot on, just making sure that everything we have is balanced and that we actually make sure that we're having the right carbohydrates and the right proteins to be able to fuel ourselves and not just kind of think fruit and veg is the most important food source to have.
Yeah.
And I think,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that carbohydrates have like a really negative connotation in society because like so many people go like gluten-free to be healthy, but like as an athlete, like your body needs those carbs before like a day of working out. So like it's important that you do eat them and not just like cut them completely out of your diet. And if you do, for like health reasons, need to cut them out, make sure you're getting like a carbohydrate in a different way that's not like bread or pasta or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, another thing too that I find, especially for the younger athletes, and I'll be the club soccer mom for a second, because my boys play club, and I'm just thinking of all this, having, when you talk about nutrition, so you find a go-to snack or filler before or after workouts that you like, whether it's peanut butter or almonds or something, that you can have little snack packs or make little pouches or Ziplocs, whatever it is. I would say, talk with your parents about what works well for you, and have them get some of this stuff, whether it's a grocery store or someplace like that, and having those in your backpacks. If you can, at school, although I'm not sure you can eat in schools now with COVID. At least I know in junior where you can't have snacks, at school, but having stuff in your backpack, having when you're, driving to club practice, usually it's not, just 5 minutes away, right? So you have time, having some sort of quick energizer, after school before practice, and then having some sort of, re-energizer on the ride home, having them available. And the trick is to plan ahead of time. So if you have practice tomorrow, so today's Monday. Okay. So say, okay, so I know I'm going to have club practice tomorrow. I got to drive to my parents have to go to Mendon, wherever it is. Well, okay. Well, I'm going to put either a little cooler together or a pack together to have it ready, so then when you're hungry, you're not having to choose what you really want to eat, as you've already made those healthy choices ahead of time. So now your options are which of these good choices am I going to eat?
Yeah.
That can help too, having it ready. Because when you're hungry, you're not always like, oh, I'm going to go for, your thought process isn't as straightforward. So, kind of pre-planning and having those options available works too.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think, like you said, having those conversations with your parents, I'm sure that they all want you to have the best food available to help you. So don't be afraid to have those conversations and sort of say, hey, this is what works for me, and maybe help plan together and do it as a joint thing, so you can just have those conversations and kind of prepare together as well. Thank you so much. I have one final question, and it's a question that I ask all of the guests I've had on my podcast. So it is off topic, but hopefully it'll be fine. So the question I have is, this program, the NEF program, is all about female empowerment. And so my question to you is, what does female empowerment look like to you, and what does it mean to you?
I mean, on the top of my head, it means like, I think that women helping women supporting women, and like not being like, oh, like this is just a example, like, oh, Leighton's playing more over me in that position, but instead me being like, no, like she's killing it, she's doing really well, she's getting turnovers, and she's like helping out like the team. That's just what comes to my head, just being supportive and like happy for women and not tearing each other down.
Yeah, I really think you hit it on the nose, Han, like supporting each other. And I think that women have like a problem with this more than men do, where they like tend to compete with each other versus, like Hannah said, lifting each other up. So I would just agree with everything that Hannah was saying, like women lifting each other up and supporting each other versus like competing with each other and tearing each other down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I think too, also, thinking of, female women empowerment, it's shutting out the voices that don't want to acknowledge or accept the strengths that we bring, and, being together as a community to say, well, if you want to say that, that's fine, but here's what we're doing. And you're going to kind of have to deal with it, and I think there's that level of, I mentioned it earlier, being strong and confident and part of a community, but being unapologetic for it, and, being proud of building that together. I think that's a big part of it too.
That is amazing. Thank you all so much for all of the wisdom and experience and everything that you've kind of brought to today's podcast. This will.
Yeah, thank you all. This was fun. I appreciate you.
Yeah,
Winter break.
Thank you for having us.
Like winter break. What do you do over winter break? I'll go on a podcast. So. Of course you do. What else are you gonna do? Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
It was my pleasure. Thanks again.